And this is from the Message Bible, the book of Matthew continued. And then he says, and the seed which is cast in the weeds is the person who hears the kingdom news, but the weeds of worry and illusion about getting more and wanting everything under the sun strangle what was heard, and nothing comes out of it. The seed cast on good earth is the person who hears and takes in the news and produces a harvest beyond his wildest dreams. God's kingdom is like a farmer who planted good seed in his field. In the night, while his hired hands were asleep, his enemy sowed thistles all through the wheat and slipped away before dawn. When the first green shoots appeared and the grain began to form, the thistles showed up too. The farmhands came and said, Master, that was clean seed you planted, wasn't it? Where did these thistles come from? And he answered, some enemy did this. And they asked, should we weed out the thistles? And he said, no, if you weed out the thistles, you'll pull up the wheat too. Let them grow together until harvest time. Then I will instruct harvesters to pull up the thistles and tie them in bundles and throw them in the fire, and then gather the wheat and put it in the barn. Then he said, God's kingdom is like a pine nut. They don't know what mustard seed is, possibly. In India, we use a lot of mustard when we cook, and it's a tiny, tiny black seed. It's so tiny that you can't even hold one between your fingers. And he says, a farmer plants, it's quite small as seeds go, but in the course of years it grows into a huge tree, and eagles build their nests in them. God's kingdom is like yeast that a woman works into the dough for dozens of loaves of bread and waits while the dough rises. All Yeshua did that day was to tell stories, and a long storytelling afternoon. His storytelling fulfilled the prophecy. I will open my mouth and tell stories. I will bring out into the open things hidden since the world first began. And Yeshua then dismissed the congregation and went into the house. And his disciples came in and said, explain to us the story of the thistles in the field. And he said, the farmer who sows pure seed is the Son of Man. That's himself. The field where he sows it is the world. The pure seed are subject. Also, the pure seeds are the subjects of the kingdom. The thistles are the subjects of the devil. And the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, the curtain of history. The harvest hands are the angels. The picture of thistles pulled up and burned is a scene from the final act. The Son of Man will send his angels, weed out the thistles from his kingdom, pitch them into the trash, and be done with them. They're going to complain to high heaven, but nobody is going to listen. At the same time, ripe, holy lives will mature and adorn the kingdom of their Father. Are you listening to this? Really listening? God's kingdom is like a treasure hidden in a field for years and then found accidentally by a trespasser. The finder is ecstatic. What a find! He goes and sells everything he owns to raise the money and to buy the field. God's kingdom is like a jewel merchant on the hunt for excellent pearls. And when he finds that one flawless pearl, he sells everything he owns and buys it. God's kingdom is like a fish net cast into the sea, catching all kinds of fish. When it is full, it is hauled onto the beach. The good fish are picked out and put in a tub, and those unfit to eat are thrown back, thrown away. This is how it is when the curtain comes down on history. The angels will come and cull the bad fish and throw them into the garbage. There will be a lot of desperate complaining, but it won't do any good. Yeshua asked, are you starting to get a handle on this? And they said, yes. And he says, Then you see how every good student, well trained in God's kingdom, is like the owner of a general store who can put his hand on anything, old or new, exactly when they need it. Yeshua finished telling these stories and left and returned to his hometown and started giving a lecture in the meeting house. He made a real hit, impressing everyone. We had no idea he was this good. They said, how did he get so wise? How did he get such ability? And in the next breath, they cut him down. Ha! We've known him since he was a kid, carpenter's son. We know his mother Mary. We know all his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, Judas. All his sisters live here. Who does he think he is? They got their noses all out of joint. And Yeshua said, a prophet is taken for granted in his hometown and by his family. He didn't do many miracles there because of their hostile indifference. The leaven of unbelief. And this was the book of Matthew. Thanks be to God for his word that makes us wiser than the enemy. Hallelujah.